Right then, you'll have seen by now the tragic news that Liverpool and Portugal footballer Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva were killed in a car accident in northwestern Spain. He was 28 years old. He was a father of three young children and had married his long-term partner less than 2 weeks ago. Obviously coming back off a season with Liverpool where he won the Premier League title, had won the Nations League with Portugal as well. Tony Evans is with us on the line. Tony, appreciate you joining us and really wish this was in better circumstances. We are having you on the show. I can only assume that anybody who covers Liverpool football, anybody who follows the football club, and anybody who interacts with any aspect of the city is just in a complete state of shock today.
Yeah, I think everyone's devastated. You don't expect something like this to happen. You know, you've got Diogo Jota, a player at the peak of his career, 28 years old, in great physical health, and you'd expect him, to come bouncing back in the next week or so to Merseyside, coming to Kirby, to the training centre, and be preparing for a new season. And instead, this will cast a huge shadow over the preparations for Liverpool. But that's the least of it, really. It's the human story here.
Yeah, it certainly is. That phrase that you use there, bouncing back, feels a very good choice of words, because that kind of feels like a perfectly apt way to describe Diogo Jota and how he moved and how he went about his business. All the photos that you see of him today are a man smiling, a man who is cheerful on the football pitch. And as football fans, particularly in the modern age, there's a bit of a distance there where we don't properly know our heroes. Liverpool fans don't properly know Diogo Jota. The majority of them never did. But you can form a picture, and that picture, Tony, is very much one of joy on the pitch, a footballer with a smile on his face.
Yeah, a man who relished his job. When he come on, he worked really hard, which made him perfect for a Jurgen Klopp team. He could play right across the fronts, never stopped, a great engine. And when he scored, that huge smile. And obviously that brings a great deal of excitement to the crowds when you've got a goal scorer like that. Obviously, his part of his period at Anfield was blighted by injuries. But he'd just come back at the end of the season for another one, and you had a feeling that next season, he'll be back to in perfect condition. And the thing is, there are lots of players who pass through clubs and you don't really connect with them. I always feel that with any club, a player needs to be there 5 seasons, 5 years to really feel that they are part of what it's all about. And Jota was at that point, and he'd been around long enough to be almost part of the furniture. And I wouldn't say you took him for granted, but you knew what you were getting from him. What you were getting is 100% effort and that eye for a goal.
Yeah, I think that's like a totally fair way to describe it as well. It's not taking for granted him, but there a reality here that over the course of his Liverpool career, he wasn't always the first choice attacker either on the left or through the middle, but it never really sensed that this was a guy who was agitating for a move or was unhappy with his minutes, while still also being a fierce competitor. Why do you think he managed to forge such a bond with Liverpool? What was it about this man that led to Liverpool fans loving him? I don't think it's an understatement to say that. I do think Liverpool fans loved the man.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's when you see someone putting in the same amount of effort that you as a fan would do when you get on the pitch, then it's hard not to love them. And that's the one thing he brought to it. As you say, Owen, he didn't agitate for a move, even when he wasn't first choice. He'd play anywhere. Put him on the pitch, he just wanted to get on there and play. And he gave everything. You could never ever look at him and say, oh, he phoned his performance in today, because he didn't. He was there, and when he absolutely loved playing football, and that, I think, is the thing that really forms the bonds between supporters and players.
And Liverpool fans absolutely loved watching him, and it is this amazing thing that football and sport gives us, because obviously, as you've started off by saying here, Tony, football doesn't matter one jot today when you think of the woman he's recently married, when you think of the children that he has and the family that he and his brother have left behind. But at the same time, there was a joy that he managed to transplant to people throughout the thing that he did for a living. And that's probably why football is elevated to a higher plane and why we all see it as such. It's because we all got to feel incredible things from a footballer like him.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And you could see the joy he had in playing the game. And when he scored, a couple of things always struck me about him is he wasn't the tallest, but he was so good in the air and he could cause problems for defenders. And I think everyone's dream is to be a footballer. Well, not everyone, but anyone's saying it's there. And when you see someone actually living the dream and enjoying it to such a level as Jota did, I think it's a fantastic sight. And he was the perfect player for a Jurgen Klopp team. Yeah, I can't say that too many times. He gave everything, and sort of that Klopp sense of the Klopp sense of how should we put it? The joy of just being around it. He had that as well. So I think aside from being a top class player, I think he was someone the fans could associate with. And as a person, he was very. He wasn't a off the pitch. He wasn't someone who was a larger than life character in that sense. He wasn't a big shot. He was a very committed family man and a very private man. But whenever you had to deal with him, he was easy to deal with.
Right, because I was going to ask you about that. Like, as I say, there is this distance between football fans and football players now that's greater than ever. But someone like yourself is lucky enough to be able to paint a more accurate picture of the human being. And everything that I read today from people in your profession, Tony, from football writers all around England, particularly those in Liverpool, is that what we saw on the pitch in terms of a man full of joy and a really genuine seeming guy is the reality.
Yeah, there was nothing fake about him at all, and there was nothing. He had a swagger on the football pitch, but no sense of being, no overinflated ego there. And you could tell that by the way he handled those periods when he wasn't first choice. What he did is he got his head down and worked hard. And again, that's something that appeals to supporters. He was he has a great, he knew he was a talented player, but his ego was not out of control.
No, it definitely seemed that way. Just on a final theme, like Liverpool Football Club, unfortunately, has just a history that has had its tragic moments, is punctuated by horrendous human moments, the worst things that we can have ever experienced as human beings. That feeling, that grief that is attached to the history of the club. And even if you look back to the end of the Premier League season, the near tragedy of what happened during the title celebrations, it is a football club that's been through an awful lot, Tony, in terms of how they rally around the players and the fans rally around one another. Unfortunately, there is a small bit of muscle memory there.
Yeah, I mean, it's particularly saddening. Well, the main thing is, before we talk about this, the main thing we should focus on is the family and all those who were close to, were friends and were close to. But on a wider scale, with Liverpool, you expect the summer to be, after winning the title, you think, oh, it's going to be a great summer. When everyone will be smiling all through the summer, and then of course at the parade we had the incident with the car running into the crowd, and that really that casts a blight over the celebrations. And you think, well, nothing. That's about the worst thing that can happen this summer. And we move on. And Liverpool's transactions in the transfer market have been really positive, and everyone was feeling good about life. And then this news comes through, and it is a absolute sickener. But I think also it goes way beyond the club. I mean, right across the game, people are devastated today, and you can see by the way fans of other clubs have reacted as well. It's it's bigger than football and it's bigger than Liverpool. It's a human story which I think everyone is touched by, and we often get the Shankly's joke. Football's not a matter of life and death. It's much bigger than that. We get that thrown at us, as a sort of a sneer in a sneering way because of Hillsborough and things like that. But Shankly used it as a bit of witticism when said, "Come on," a reporter said, "Come on, Bill, it's not a matter of life or death." He said, "Oh, it's much more important." He saw the laugh he got, so he carried on using it, and now it's become it's sort of, as I say, one of these things that which people use as a stick to beat us. But you know what? Football isn't bigger than life or death, and no one knew that more than Shankly. And one of the things that Shankly tried to foster among the support base was that people are more important in the end than the game, and I think than results. And I think at times like this, you realise that, and it's just everyone's just so sad that Diogo Jota will never be smiling on the Anfield pitch again, and everyone feels so bad for his family and for his poor wife and 3 kids.
Yeah, it really is an absolute tragedy. Tony Evans, really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining us this evening.
Well, thank you.